Get ready for truth and common sense. Join the Framers View on Rumble.com to be part of the chat. Be sure to click join and follow to help keep the Framer on the air. Watch the replay on theframersview.com or Rumble.com.
If it's a day that ends in Y, then it must be Framers View. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the show, and we're going to talk about the Constitution today. Yes, we are, because I am having so much fun watching the world go by. And go by meaning the Democrats and their total, complete, absolute BS. If you don't have time to watch it, I'll share some stuff with you today that will help you understand where we are. I just had a meeting this morning, and I won't get into who the people are and what it's all about, but it's so clear when you have a liberal in your meeting, because they are just everything they talk about, which had nothing to do with politics, had nothing to do with Trump, had nothing to do, they infuse it into the conversation. It's just craziness. I'm blown away by it. I'm totally blown away by it. So again, welcome to Framers View. Do me a favor, click on follow, click on the old thing there where it says like, thumb up, and we'll be friends. We're friends anyway. But trying to grow this baby, and it takes a little bit of work to get that done. So your help would be appreciated. So a couple of things before we get into the meat of the story today. And there's three things. One is about how the funding with Mayorkas and what was going on with immigration. They're now, I don't have any detail yet, but there's now word that they know what he was up to. I always said, his lips are moving, so he's lying. He was you talk about a useful idiot. This guy, without question, was the one that was probably the best at throwing BS at people and knowing that a lot of them would believe it. I guess that's the only way to put it. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, because here's the thing. There's two instances, in my opinion, other than the corruption with Biden with the illegal documents and that type of thing in his garage, where he couldn't possibly have had that because a vice president has no right to that, but he had those things at home. When he took it home when the administration was done in the Obama administration. So he had that. We'll forget about that part. We'll forget about the fact he was involved with his son, Hunter Biden. Skip that. But the things that we really want to, I don't know if the word is focus on, but that we want to remember is that all of these things that were happening with the border, and it's unknown right now, what was their real reason, other than we know, for an example, that New York and California want to be able to have a bigger bite into the political power by having more residents. And the fastest way to have more residents, other than having pregnancies and births, is, of course, just letting people come across the border, and we don't care who they are. That's one thing. The other thing is about all this spending, the spending that's going on, and the fact that the Democrats in these committees are just making, this isn't anything other than making a fool of yourself. Because what most people know, nobody watches these. Nobody goes to these committee meeting televised programs and really watch it. And so it's an itty bitty little bunch of people that do that, idiots like me. And they look at those things and they review them and they see what's happening and they go, oh, this is crazy. But most people don't even know. So why do the Democrats find it necessary to literally, by evidence that's in front of us, lie lie and lie about the things, for example, that Doge is doing, or the expenses that are being blown out of proportion. We should have had control on a long time ago that we didn't. And they basically said, never mind the man behind the curtain. Bullshit, excuse me. It's just that what it is. We're not that stupid, but we don't get exposed to it. We don't have an opportunity to tell people what's really happening. And I don't think we're informed enough because we're not interested enough. That's what I would call this at this point, is we don't have enough people that are interested in what's really occurring. And until we get that, until we accomplish that, we're not going to get ourselves in a better spot in America. Trump's doing a hell of a job. So that was one of the pieces. One of the other pieces is this whole thing with the JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King release of documents, and those are things that the Democrats are pushing back on also. So, and you may say to yourself, well, why would they do that? And I think, I don't know for sure, but I think because we haven't seen it, I think they know that there are things there that they don't want anybody to know about. And this is another example of how the Democrat Party has been so corrupt for so long. And don't get me wrong, there are Republican politicians that are corrupt. There have been things that have been done, Nixon would be a good example, that have been done that should have never happened. The way we got into the first war after we were attacked. I believed that there were weapons there in Iraq and that they were moved. I believed that because we didn't really have the information we have today. Today we have a lot more, and they're worried about that. A few side notes as far as the people that are, I guess, assigned to being safe. Imagine if you're out in the middle of a great big ocean, an ocean that's so huge that you can't see anything else but water when you're out in the ocean. And today, the Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier had a collision in Egypt in the Mediterranean Sea. How does that happen? How in the world does that happen? So, common sense, which I preach a lot on, the common sense is coming from a Democrat. I give him credit. He will disappoint you. But John Fetterman's saying, this is just craziness. You guys talking about, you guys being the Democrats, that we're in a constitutional crisis, or our toes are just over the edge of a constitutional crisis. We're not in a constitutional crisis. Haven't been, we're not, and we're not going to be. But Fetterman's trying to get some people's attention on that. It's just stupid. So, with that said, today's presentation is really about all of the things that go on, that happens yesterday, day before, that people don't see, that you need to be informed about. It's kind of like what I'm talking about with these committee hearings. People don't have time to sit there and watch people bloviate. Why do we want that? Well, it's part of the political process. That's the answer. But it's just what it is. So I want to start with things that when you need to cover up, we've talked about this so many times. When we need to cover up something we don't want anybody to know about, what we need to do is create a diversion. In the fire service, one of the things that's never happened to us here where I'm from, but you'll see in these big cities where there will be a robbery, or there'll be this or that that they create that's across town that draws a lot of resources that way to do the thing they want to do that they don't want anybody to know it's happening. Well, that's going on with the Democratic Party right now because they don't want all of this spending to be exposed. For people to say, whoa, wait a minute. You spent $1 billion on what? It's amazing. People are making a mistake when they say something millions and saying billions because we're so used to saying billions like it's nothing. A billion is 1,000 million. A trillion is 1,000 trillion. Is 1,000 billion. It's a lot of money. It's more than you can stuff in your pocket or a room if it's in dollars. You can't do it. But nobody really is conceptualizing how much money we're spending. So Elon Musk goes in and he starts digging. A guy that everybody says, well, he has a conflict of interest. He doesn't need us to be able to make him even more richer. Don't need it. He doesn't need it. He is a money machine without any help from anybody. He creates things. He makes things happen. He creates a solution with people that we don't even understand. Sorry, the phone just keeps on ringing. But it's an ongoing process, and we're not going to be able to in any way create an answer unless we stop the cover-ups. So I talked about the fact there's people that don't want you to know about those expenses. So let's put a bright light someplace else and everybody will run to it. Squirrel! Right? So, Presley, I forget what her first name is, Presley. She's brought up something that's been out there forever, but she's starting a process. And here's what this is. This is craziness. House Dems reintroduce reparation legislation. We refuse to be silent. Presley said during a news conference that reparations are a necessary step in achieving justice. Justice of what? We are in a moment of anti-blackness on steroids, and we refuse to be silent, Presley said. We will not back down in our pursuit of racial justice. Of racial justice? The bill aims to create a federal commission charged with investigating and enduring impacts of slavery and its aftermath, along with developing concrete proposals for reparations to African Americans who are descendants of slaves. Reparations can take different forms, but broadly refer to payments or other forms of recompense to the descendants of Black individuals affected by slavery or past racist policies. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, now I'm going to call your attention to this. Go back to the first page of this thing, right here. We are in a moment of anti-blackness on steroids, and we refuse to be silent. Will not back down. Necessary of achieving justice. Okay, where's the justice? First of all, I watched the Super Bowl. Everybody was black on the stage at the halftime. All the players on the football field virtually are black. The former president of the United States is black. No black person has to sit at the back of the bus, and I haven't seen a water fountain that says white and black. And you had to. I'd like to take everybody back to the 1950s and 60s, mostly 60s for me, and have you see how blacks were abused then. We're not in a time of blackness. Shut up. But they're doing this to get you to not pay attention to what the real issue is, and that's the expenditure. And let me add a couple other things. How about reparations for the Japanese people that were put in camps when World War II started, that didn't have a good life during that period of time? Or let's go back a little further. When we came to this country, and we spent a lot of years killing a lot of American Indians that had this land. This land is my land. Land is my land. That land is my land. And they killed a lot of Indians. A lot of white people, so to speak, were killed too. But to just say blacks? And then let's take a look at how many blacks are in politics now. Let's take a look at how many black people are in high positions in companies and black people who have created amazing businesses. This is a diversion, people. This isn't about blackness and the fact that they've been misused and abused. This is a diversion from what's really happening. Blacks deserve the rights of every white person. So do Mexicans, so do Japanese, so do everybody else that lives in this country that are citizens. And if you're not a citizen, you don't have any rights. You don't belong here. You're a felon. So taking this down this path is just crazy. But I have to say it again. Do not let yourself get caught up in these kind of things. Every time you see a story come out by Democrats and them raising some big issue, say to yourself, are they trying to cover up for what really is happening? Are they trying to cover up the fact that we're finding out how much waste and abuse has been done by Democrats in USAID and all of these other NGOs? I had somebody ask me the other day, what's an NGO? It's a non-governmental organization, meaning they're not part of the organization of the government. They are a separate entity that's been approved by the government to basically give out money to aid people in this country and foreign aid, mostly foreign. But nobody really was oversight on this. The things that have happened, if there was true oversight, long before this, they'd have said, no. We can't do this. No, you can't do that. No. So that somebody has to be doing that. Well, guess what? The guy that we call Elon Musk drives over to USAID in his Tesla, plugs it into the charger there, because I'm sure there's chargers in that parking lot. And he goes in and he says, I want to see the books. Or he goes in to the Treasury. I want to see the books. He can't change anything. He can't make a payment or stop a payment. That can only be done by the President of the United States or the House, who controls the money. But they haven't. So that's where we are right now. And they're finding billions upon billions of dollars. I saw last night that they estimate that Elon Musk, and his skateboarders, as somebody called it, his people that's helping him, $1.5 billion a day is being saved. That's unbelievable. That means in 10 days, $15 billion. Now, will it continue like that forever? No, of course not. But I think their estimate of $2 trillion might be a little high, but I think we'll go well over $1 trillion. That's like real money. That's what your tax money is going to. The government doesn't have any money. They have your money. I will say it until the last breath that I have. I have no problem with paying taxes. I just finished my taxes. What is it? 13th of February. Taxes are done. Everybody needs to do that. We need to keep the government going. But we wouldn't have these high taxes if we didn't throw money away. To have comic books in Iraq, to be pushing people into believing that we need to have trans this and trans that. The only trans we need is a transmission in our car to get the hell away from idiots. So now we're in this, let's call it fury of Donald Trump. His notepad was pages and pages and pages of information. His notepad was about here's what I want to do if I become president of the United States again. His other notepad says, don't forget about what these people that I should have never trusted can't do anything and are going to be gone. You know, if somebody doesn't do their job, or somebody does something against your company, tries to hurt your company, you fire them for cause. You know, it's really simple. You know, right to work and not right to work states. If somebody is trying to destroy your company or the government or one side of the government, they got to go. Somebody got elected. His name is Donald J. Trump. And when he got elected by a landslide, by electoral vote, that pretty well settled it. And now he's doing his job. So my first story is not a video, but it's classic. If you know who Caitlin Collins is, she's a news person on CNN. Not the brightest person on the planet. Let's just put it that way. She does her news. She's snarky at everything. And she somehow ended up being the White House correspondent for CNN. And she's crying. Look at this story. CNN correspondent cries about the stark contrast between Trump and Biden's presidencies. No kidding. During an appearance on NBC's Late Night with Seth Meyers, another not brilliant guy, Collins revealed that the restlessness pace of news surrounding Trump often led to her forego breakfast and work through weekends. Oh no! It is insane, Collins remarked, reflecting on the frenetic never mind, environment that characterized Trump presidency. Frenetic. I couldn't say that word. She's crying about this. She noted that many journalists were readjusting to the whirlwind pace reminiscent of Trump's previous term, as reported by the Daily Wire. Collins contrasted to love this Trump administration's rapid-fire news cycle with that of his successor, former President Joe Biden. Now we wax back to, I remember when Biden first took office in January. The New York Times wrote about this story about how quiet the weekends were. Collins recounted. This is the President of the United States. It's 24/7, guys. And how calm and quiet it was. She recounted an instance when she planned to enjoy a leisurely breakfast before heading to work, only to be informed mid-journey of an impromptu press conference by Trump. Halfway there, they were like, Trump's going to do a press conference in an hour. And I physically ran back home so I could change and get ready. Duh. In stark contrast, Biden's presidency was marked by, you're going to love this, they're admitting it now, frequent vacations, with approximately 40% of his time in office, as far as administration, spent away from the White House. 40%. That basically means, basically 2 years and we'll say 3 months that he was actually working out of 4. This often left reporters with little to no to cover, as the administration's activities were notably less eventful. Guys, this guy was supposed to be the President of the United States. They don't get this. This job for a measly $400 and some thousand. And I know, if you're making $60,000 a year, which is the average, $400,000, you'd kill for that. To get $400,000 a year? But anybody that gets there to President of the United States, they've made more than that in their life. Most of them. Clinton didn't. He came in pretty well broke. Didn't leave broke. The senators and the Congress people that come in, they serve in Congress for $150,000 to $200,000 a year, and they leave with 20 and $30 million. Somebody was talking about, I can't remember who it was, a congressperson that went in virtually broke, served a certain period of time, and was worth $30 million when she left. Joe Biden, how does he have all these homes and everything? He's been in politics for over 50 years, making, back in those days, $80,000, $100,000, probably not even that much it wasn't near that much at that time. But he's worth millions of dollars now? How can that be? Corruption, ladies and germs. Just simply corruption. And, I can't express it any better than that. You can't get that much money being in the government without corruption. And some of this is about your knowledge of investment opportunities that should never be allowed to happen, that they make millions of dollars with stuff that nobody else knows about, and they get in on the front end of it. That's really scary. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. And you know what, Caitlin, stop whining. You're getting paid well, although CNN may not be paying anybody if they keep losing audience. And they're back to their old thing of just completely left. They tried to be in the middle for about, 7 minutes. Couldn't do it. Could not do it. But here we are. Here we are today looking at CNN doing the same thing they did and losing audience. While Fox News and Newsmax has probably been the biggest recipient of these people because, they were told Fox is terrible. They went to Newsmax thinking it's going to be more center. I think it's a little more right wing than even Fox is. I know it is. So my first story today is really my most foundational bug that I'm trying to get through and pass and fix by telling people. And that's about this trans issue. I want to show you first just a little clip of Trump when he signed the trans law to not allow men in women's locker rooms, women's showers, all of the things, and men playing in women's sports.
The Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
That's a good thing, right? I mean, I've said this so many times, and I've had a crazy couple of days here. I wanted to get some videos, and I'm going to do this, some videos of women that have been injured in women's sports by men, because they're out there. And the reason I want to do that, and I'll do this because of this next video I'm going to show you, that is just MSNBC. They know better. They know better than to let men in women's sports, but they can't accept it because who's against it? Republicans, and especially Donald J. Trump. So they have to go the other way. Wouldn't it be interesting if the press would be all press for all things? And if somebody would be able to say on CNN, MSNBC, why are men allowed to play in men's sports? I don't care how many drugs you take to take away the manly part of your body and have them surgical operations. You still have more power than a woman has. We've seen it over and over and over again. But this piece I'm going to show you is MSNBC with a professor from Purdue. And when you hear her title, you'll know all you need to know. But this is about, why is this so important? Why do people care about this? Watch this. We'll talk about it on the other side.
Joining us now, Purdue University professor of American Studies and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, Cheryl Cookie. This was such a big campaign issue, and a lot of parents felt like it was just something that was fundamentally unfair to have transgender boys play with girls because of the just the dynamics, the bodily dynamics there. I'm just curious. What are the actual numbers on this?
The executive order is really a solution in search of a problem. That if we look at the numbers of transgender athletes who are participating in sports, the estimates are really although it's estimated to be around 10 athletes. I believe the NCAA president came out and spoke to Congress that he knows of 10 athletes who are competing at the NCAA level. Take into consideration that at the NCAA level, there's 544,000 athletes who are participating. So that's 10 athletes out of 544,000. And then the millions of girls that are participating in high school sports. We're maybe talking about, a handful of athletes in those at that level of competition as well. And so there are some states that have bans against transgender participation even before the executive order went into place.
It became such a big campaign issue. It made it seem like it was happening everywhere, and that every girls' team was at risk of either having unfair competition or, as the president just said, being beat up.
Yeah. Being beat up. Let's try to qualify what beat up means. Beat up means, for an example, watching a women's volleyball game, and the guy in the back court does a slam, just fireball over the net, hits a girl in the head, knocks her out. By the way, volleyball getting hit in the face, I've had that happen. It ain't fun. I wouldn't prefer getting hit with a fist, but it's brutal. This is an issue. This is an issue that they just can't just let go by having men and women's sports. But they don't get it. And if they don't get it, they say, well, it's 10 people. It's not 10 people. They know that. That is, again, their lips are moving. They must be lying. Right now, we have a city down in I think it's Louisiana, that's becoming a sanctuary trans city. A trans sanctuary city. And if you saw the video, I couldn't grab the video. Somebody's keeping it from getting out a lot. It may be available today. I tried to get it early, late last night, get it early to be able to get it on the show. But these people that look like freak shows that are wanting to have a sanctuary city, which, by the way, they won that fight, and they are going to have sanctuary city for trans. To think that it isn't more out there and in the high school level, maybe the grade school level, who knows? And then there's parents. I've got a family member that has been totally supportive of their kid transitioning and not doing any effort to help that person understand what they're doing, to help them understand. If they want to be that way, fine. But when you're 2 and 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, you can't make those decisions. And if there's a push towards that by parental influence, that's dangerous. And that's what we have to worry about today. It's saddening. It's really saddening. All right. Do you remember when I said, thank God we won the House and the Senate and the White House? And we talked about the fact that, we now can control what's going to happen, influence the government, and hopefully take executive orders, they're called EOs, take the EOs and take them and become legislation and get those things passed. And we have 1 year and about 10 months right now to get that done. Because if we don't get the job done and satisfy the public, there's not going to be a majority in the House or the Senate or either one. And then Trump gets nothing done. They'll impeach him. You can bet on that. Al Green's already has tried to do the impeachment. It's going nowhere, but that's what they want. So Rachel Maddow, which is one of my favorites, is talking about this. She makes some good points, but she's forgetting about a few things that are important to consider. I want you to watch this. She's talking about the Dems won't help. She just thinks that she can play the hardball game. Hardball is over. They don't have the majority.
Democratic members of Congress are now threatening that if Republicans go ahead with plans to try to unilaterally and illegally shut down the education department, Democrats in Congress will refuse to help Republicans do absolutely anything in Congress. And that might sound like a sort of wan threat. That might sound like no big deal. But Republicans have such a tiny majority in the House, they need Democratic help to do pretty much anything. And yes, that includes needing Democratic votes, undoubtedly, to keep the government open and running at all past this time next month. If Democrats in the Senate are going to say no unanimous consent, no yes votes on any nominees, we're going to make you stay up all night and hold the floor for all these things. We're going to make everything go as slow as possible. We're going to grind this thing to a halt. They're using the powers of the Senate to do that. Members of the House, Democrats in the House, don't have the same toolkit that Republican, they don't have the same toolkit that Democrats have in the Senate, but they do have a toolkit. And with a margin as slim as it is in the House, with Republicans having such a tiny majority, they know they can't do anything without at least a few Democratic votes. Democrats are now saying, you want to shut down the Department of Education, you're not going to get any Democratic votes or any Democratic help for anything we're going to bring this place.
Well, Nancy, I think she's crazy, and we should probably put her in a bucket and put the lid on and send her out to the trash. Nancy, let's go ahead and do that. Guys, we don't have any votes from the Democrats anyway. We got Fetterman for one of the votes. We're not going to get a bunch of Democrats to vote anyway. I've got a follow-up story of that with Rachel Maddow that I'll share with you here in a moment. But this threat, this idea that the Republicans can't get because there's such a narrow lead. Well, let's see. Let's talk about the House. The House has got somewhat of a lead, not a lot, but there's Democrats that are kind of looking at the common sense and they'd like to get reelected, and they know what the public is saying, even though she's going to say, oh, no. The public's totally against all of this. She's crazy. She's living in a bubble, and bubbles pop. But the Department of Education probably will not be scrubbed completely. It will have a lot of its power removed and a lot of the budget removed and send that to the states. The government, you learn this in the military, you learn this in the fire service and the police departments. There's a thing that you talk about, and that's the span of control. That's what it's called, the span of control. That means, in a world of fire service, for example, your span of control as an officer or a team leader is 3 or 4 people, maybe 5 at the most. It's hard to keep track of everybody in a situation. You talk about a big event, a big fire, a big wildland fire. There's hundreds and hundreds of people, span of control to manage this. Why would we think that the Department of Education would know and be able to control all of these districts in all of these states and put regulations on everybody that wouldn't work in Alabama as opposed to Washington State. They're different states, they're different people, there's different situations, there's different educational requirements by the voters. And those schools should have the right, the school administrations should have the right, the ability to do the things correctly. The Department of Education should be watching the success of education and have control over those states only about those reports and whether they're hitting the guidelines. They should get the hell out of the rest of it. And the unions, why are they screaming? They're still going to be the teachers. They're still going to have their union dues. They're still going to make their hundreds of thousands of dollars as leaders of these unions. They'll still bilk everybody out of the money. So why would they care? The Department of Education should be set up in my studio here and with some phones. Talk to the states, find out what they need, help them with things, have some oversight about what decision is made about what money goes to the states, and let their oversight in those states manage that money. And when they run out of money, too bad, so sad. There's no caviar for lunch for the kids in 8th grade. We'll have to go to pizza. I'm being silly with that, but you know what I mean. That's where we are today. That's what we have to do. So watch this additional piece with Rachel Maddow, a person that really thinks she's an authoritarian and that she knows the Democrats can roll over Republicans.
Musk and his random team of JV hackers started to announce the cancellation of contracts at the Department of Education today. On what authority? Democratic members of Congress sounded the alarm to the press that this was happening today. While that was happening today, a federal judge heard the lawsuit that will try to kick Doge and his Musk minions out of the Department of Education the way the courts have told them to get out of all of these other agencies. And so you've got direct action, you've got legislation threats effectively, you've got threats in terms of the political system on Capitol Hill. You've got the press being alerted to what's going on. You've got Democrats doing everything they can, including no business as usual, to try to stop it. And no, I don't know if that will work to save the Department of Education, as now this lawsuit tries to stop Trump and Musk from what they're doing. But I do know that they've got public opinion against them on this too, right? What Trump and Musk are trying to do to the Education Department,
Yes, they do. I'll continue this video in a second. Close your eyes, Rachel. The public is not happy with the way the education system is. And the parents, seeing the grade levels, are upset. She has no idea what she's talking about. And I'll continue.
a huge majority of voters in this country, more than 60% of all registered voters in this country, want the Department of Education to not be eliminated.
That's a different story.
And so I know that the public is going to fight them on this. I know Democrats are fighting like heck for it. I know that the courts are standing up against what they're doing here. And I know that people are in the streets in Washington and all over the country, even in places you wouldn't expect. Not just for protests, but turning out in huge numbers for organizing meetings, to organize everything they can to stop what Trump is doing.
Ladies and germs, she has no idea what she's talking about. The Department of Education is not just going to go away. It's like everything else that Musk is doing. When Musk went into Twitter before it became X, not his little boy, but the social media group, and he took a look at the overblown expenses and the people that had no jobs and were just there collecting paychecks, and he got rid of them. But guess what? That social media entity is still there and much more efficient. Doge, that was his first practice, I guess. He did that long before that, but that's an example. So the Department of Education, and I wanted to tie that together with the whole trans thing, because when we have schools that are just infused with liberal craziness. You see it in so many universities. You see it in universities you would never expect it to happen, except for Hillsdale College. If I had a kid now going into college, heading for Michigan to go to Hillsdale College, they're going to follow the Constitution, teach what's right for people, teach them history, civics, bring them out of school with a great education, and a good understanding of how America works. But that's another story. So the Department of Education is now really being affected in one specific way. And that's about the sports, and that's about the girls being infused with boys in their athleticism. Look at this. Education Department urges NCAA, NFHS, which is the high school, to revoke awards and records held by trans-identifying athletes. Yippee-ki-yay. Riley Gaines, perfect example. She should have won her event, the national championship, but some guy that's a foot taller than her and maybe not twice as strong, beat her. He's not good enough to just crush her, which is why he decided to become a girl and be a dominant person in women's sports. But I'm just telling you. Less than a week after Donald Trump signed the executive order effectively prohibiting trans athletes from competing in girls and women's sports, the U.S. Department of Education is urging the NCAA and the National Federation of High School Associations to remove the records and awards the trans athletes misappropriated from these sports. This is a big deal. This gives solidity, a solution to these girls that have been cheated. The announcement comes after the Office of General Counsel of the U.S. Department of Education wrote to the NCAA and NFHS on Tuesday requesting that the organizations restore to female athletes the records, titles, awards, and recognitions misappropriated by biological males competing in female categories. Department of Education will do everything in our power to right the wrong and champion the hard-earned accomplishments of past, current, and future female collegiate athletes. This is good. This is good news. These are the things that make such a difference. And, it's not just, I lost to a boy. It's more than that. When you're in high school and you want to get into a college school playing volleyball, lacrosse, whatever it is, the part of what it takes to get a scholarship today is massive. But first you have to be found. Then you have to have all your background. You have to have your proof of what you do as civic events, what you do as working to pay for whatever you do, and everything that is you, they look at for a scholarship. Well, if you don't shine brightly in a sport in high school, you may not get that scholarship at a big school. Let's say it's lacrosse. Pretty good chance that's an Ivy League school out east. Not always, and it's not so much anymore. I remember at Notre Dame, they had lacrosse years ago. There was nobody there. They had a field. When they practiced, there were people practicing. It was a field completely away from everything else because nobody cared. Today, it's a big deal. Kind of like hockey, collegiate hockey. It used to be just the northern states. Well, all of these kids that want to go from high school to college could be affected by these 10 athletes, as she said, that could affect them from getting those scholarships. Donald Trump and the Department of Education and by the way, they have decided to do that since that story was written. This is important. This is important for those girls that want to have an opportunity to be able to move forward. Do many women go to pro sports? The answer could be, no, not really. Yeah, it is. When you look at soccer, you look at lacrosse, and you look at basketball, It's a big deal. We have to protect them. If you have a daughter, you care about that. If you only have sons, you ought to care about that because you know your kid can knock the girl's head off. That's my whole point of that. All right. So nobody believes that all of this is happening. Trump's doing this stuff. Caitlin Collins is having a coronary because she has to work so hard. She has to go and ask questions and take the recordings that she has and have them, so that they dictated and then make a story out of it. Oh my God, that's so hard. And I lost the chance to have breakfast. God. But CNN doesn't believe that all these savings are going on, and there's no proof of it. They don't have proof. Go to Doge.com. I haven't gone there yet. I'm going to go there. They've got an updated site. Just happened yesterday, an updated site with much more transparency. But they're not going to admit that because they don't want people to know you can go there and see that. I pay attention to this stuff. You may not know this, but the press is not going to say you can go to Doge.com and see all the transparency of what they've saved. They're not going to do that because they don't want you to know. As long as you're a mushroom in the darkness, nobody tells you the truth, you will believe what you hear from those people that are in the press. So this story with CNN is just classic. Watch this.
Transparency.
It's 23 days in here, guys. 23 days. You're talking about 2.3 billion that was saved last year. These guys are saving 2.3 billion a day.
Right, but
it's incredible.
That's what they're saying. But where's the proof?
You're waiting. You're not going to be satisfied till he shows up with 10,000 pages.
But we're talking about 10,000 pages.
Yeah.
He's giving very specific things,
yes,
but he's not actually giving any evidence of that.
It's all going to come because what they also said was, if we have to go to Congress, we'll go to Congress.
Right, but
we'll show where
some of the details that have come out, like the $59 million spent on luxury hotels, it's actually not.
You're talking about the FEMA money that was abused for migrants.
Yeah.
FEMA money for migrants, that's okay now?
No, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay. Don't put words in my mouth.
So would you stop that? Would you stop that process?
Don't be the portrayal. What I'm saying is the portrayal by him is just not factually accurate. He's talking about luxury hotels. I'm not a big look. I was in Hurricane
Until
Katrina.
he sends you a person.
Yeah, he saw what FEMA does. All right, $59 million that went to a hotel, a luxury hotel, Roosevelt, in New York City. $59 million. Tulsi got that back, by the way. Talk about clawing back. I don't think you want to really make her angry. Just guessing. Just guessing. Hey, be sure you click on follow, would you, if you're watching the show? Just wanted to remind you of that because you got to click that. Click that. Click it once. It'll say following. That's all you got to do. Anyway. When we talk about these savings that Doge is doing, Elon Musk and his skateboarders, as they call it, these kids that know nothing and they're not vetted and they don't have security clearances, they've already gone through security clearances. They couldn't get into those buildings without that. These are kids that have gone through this stuff, that are smart, that are probably in a post-degree situation, and they're helping Elon Musk. Pretty simple. Really simple. So, remember when Rachel Maddow said that, no Democrats are going to help you in the voting. And I mentioned Tulsi Gabbard just a minute ago. She was supposedly going to be the one that was probably not going to get through. Right now, we're doing RFK. He's probably not going to get through, they say. Well, I just want to remind you of what happens, and this is an MSNBC story about voting in the Senate for these confirmations for cabinet members, secretaries, cabinet members for Trump. Watch this.
The Mitch McConnell, ultimately the only Republican to vote against her nomination. This is the second nominee of Donald Trump's in which Mitch McConnell has voted no, but notably Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, who were skeptical of her nomination, ultimately voted to confirm her. The next nomination up is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Democrats are going to begin to take the Senate floor this afternoon through the night to denounce his nomination in what we expect to be a unanimous opposition among all Democratic senators tomorrow morning when his vote is ultimately taken up for his confirmation around the 7 a.m. Eastern Hour time. Now, the question with Vice President Vance, who could be a tiebreaker vote for that nomination, he is overseas presently and will be tomorrow here. And at this point in time, there are still some Republican question marks for his nomination. Mitch McConnell, one of those. Senator Curtis out of Utah. Lisa Murkowski as well. And if 3 Republicans were to vote against him, this would put his nomination in an ultimate bind. So there is still serious questions about his nomination here over the course of the next 16 hours or so, Jose. But for Donald Trump, another victory.
Yeah, they can't stand it. Another victory. Yeah. So the people that he chose as a duly elected president of the United States, that he chose these people who are highly qualified. A person that's a fighter pilot in the service, still serving, is not a terrorist or an anti-America person. They stick their neck out. That would be Tulsi Gabbard. And, you know, she was a Democrat, and I've said it, I'll say it one more time. Never trust and never fall in love with any politician because they're going to disappoint you. Okay, got that out of the way for her too. But she's really making sense. She's a common sense person. That's why she left the Democrats. She said, it's not my party anymore. I would suggest that most, not all, but most of the 1950, 60 Democrats would kind of fall into a moderate Republican today. That's how much it's changed. It's amazing. And it's all caused by agenda and crazy people that's speaking the loudest to get everybody to fall to their knees for those people. The Squad, for an example, on the Democrat side, AOC and her bunch. That's an example of that. So, last thing today, I want to share with you. You know, we talk about these people that are being nominated and getting through, and each one of them, you look at these names go away from me. There's so many names, but all of these secretaries and all of these people that are taking these jobs, planes crash, and the next day you've got a huge job on your hands. You have a mess in the Department of Justice. Things have to be done right away. Really, the Department of Defense and the thousands of people that work in the Department of Defense and the waste and abuse that's going on there. And you get a person like Hegseth, who's unbelievable, totally capable. He doesn't sit there and pull levers. He has people surrounding him. They discuss what needs to be done, and they execute those orders that come from him. Then he goes to Germany, and guess what? He works out with the troops. Lloyd Austin wouldn't have done that. Couldn't have done that. He wouldn't survive 10 minutes, 2 minutes. But that's what happens. But there's a really good example, And that example is Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi is amazing. Take a look at this. This is just fascinating what she's doing. Biden announces new lawsuits against states failing to comply with immigration actions. It's a new DOJ. The Justice Department has filed charges against the state of New York and its governor, Kathy Hochul, and Attorney General Letitia James, for failing to comply with federal laws by shielding illegal immigrants, newly sworn in Attorney General Pam Bondi announced on Wednesday. So she's already gone to work, right? So here's the continuation of this. Also charged are Mark Schroeder, commissioner of the New York Department of Motor Vehicles, because of the fact that he's the one that's giving licenses to illegals, which isn't about driving, it's about voting. Bondi cited New York's green light laws, also known as Driver's License Act, which allows illegal immigrants to get a driver's license, which allows them to be able to vote, especially on local elections, which they need to keep their power in their state. The law also prevents certain federal agencies from accessing New York State's driver's license information. If you don't comply with federal law, we will hold you accountable, Bondi said. We did it in Illinois, strike one. Strike two is New York. And if you are a state not complying with federal law, you're next. Get ready. Wow. This is a woman that you do not want to make angry, and you better follow the law. She's a law person. She believes in the law. She believes in what needs to happen. She stands up for what America is and what it requires, and she'll do her job. It's very clear. And these obnoxious New York and California leaders, they think nothing can happen. It's federal law. Hiding immigrants is it's totally illegal. And when the government does that, the first thing she'll do, she being Pam Bondi, will be, we're taking their funds away. No more federal funds. That would crush California and New York. And if they have to do it, they will. All right. I'm out of time. I'm way past time. Hey, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Please click follow. You see that button there that says follow right there on the screen when you're watching the show, whether it's on your mobile phone or on a computer. Just follow. It's really easy. You didn't have to go to college. No, no technical degree. Just click follow. And there you'll be. I appreciate it. Until tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, when I'll be back here to do more of this. I hope you have an awesome day. Carry on.
Thanks for your support. Join the Framers View Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern.